Peace, family, and welcome back to Denali Vision. This channel is dedicated to bringing justice to my son who was savagely murdered at an underage drinking party in Pasco, Washington on August 6, 2022 by a group of teenagers that call themselves the Tri-City Blitz Gang. Thank you for tuning in, and I humbly ask for you to follow along in these series of videos where I will take you through a year of hell, dealing with how my son Denali Anderson was murdered by the city, tortured by the county, and buried by the state. Take a look at this graph right here, and this is just for the state of Washington. Now let me remind you, Washington State and the city of Pasco, a hop, skip, and a jump away from the state of Oregon, which had exclusion laws that prohibited blacks from even settling in the state, which was punishable by death. You think a little bit of that wore off on Washington? Look at the racial disparities from a study done in 2019 and 2021 regarding Washington prison and jail incarceration rates. And now imagine what those numbers look like in 2023. On today's program, I'm going to expose Pasco, Washington Police Department and Franklin County prosecutors' inconsistencies in investigations, arrests, and prosecutions, and give you clear evidence why the graph and those numbers look the way that they do in Washington State. Remember when I told you that I had the whole unredacted case file? So when I presented this clear evidence to the judge, she dismissed my affidavit. When I presented this clear evidence to the prosecutors, he laughed in my face. When I presented this clear evidence to the police department, I guess officers seemed to be too busy with their own domestic violence issues. But I digress. So I want the world to know, not only do I advocate for Denali, but we need a real advocate for us. And I know that one person is out there. But as in the parable of the unjust judge, we're going to get ours. Murdered by the city. So let's get into it. Now, as you can see here, on August 6, 2022, I was working as a police officer for the city of Pasco, Franklin County, Washington. I was the watch commander for the graveyard shift squad A, 20 hours to 800 hours. I was in Pasco police uniform and driving fully marked patrol vehicle 267. At about 12:14 hours when I was advised by our dispatch center of a weapons complaint near 6104 Pimlico Drive. Several callers had called in saying there were multiple cars were shooting at each other. Callers advised that there was a white Jeep involved, last seen eastbound on Pimlico, and that there were about 12 vehicles and over 30 kids. Now, Dilworth, being a fully commissioned law enforcement officer on uniform patrol in the city of Pasco, Franklin County, Washington, to enforce the laws of the state of Washington, while in fully marked police unit 300, I was dispatched to 6104 Pimlico Drive, Pasco, Washington 99301 for a weapons complaint. Dispatched advised that there were multiple callers of shots fired and that the suspects left in a white Jeep eastbound on Pimlico. Now we get to the Jeep Liberty. So officers also discovered a Jeep Liberty, Washington license plate AHG1494, which was being driven by one Isabelle Lepez, 11/12/2002 in the area. Now the Jeep had flat tires due to being shot at. Isabelle said one of the passengers of the Jeep had attempted to perform CPR on Denali after he was shot. She later told officers that another passenger in the Jeep was a black male she knew as B. B fled the scene prior to law enforcement arriving, and his identity is still unknown. Both rear windows of the Jeep were open, mind you, and officers could see in plain view a black balaclava inside the video. Witnesses told officers at least one of the suspects was wearing what described as a possible ski mask. Now that's the first mask in the Jeep. So now we get to the car being towed and they're doing a warrant search on the vehicle after they've searched an Impreza and an Altima. So the second vehicle, a Jeep Liberty, I also located another ski mask on the center console. Wait a minute. Let me read that again. The second vehicle, a Jeep Liberty, I also located another ski mask on the center console. Okay, so one in plain view and one in the center console. Okay, two ski masks in that white Jeep. Got it. This is how the detective's account refers to my son. From the sheet-covered body of Denali, numerous cartridge casings were found within close proximity. As I continued to walk the scene, more cartridge casings were seen on the ground moving westbound. About several feet west of the body was a white Jeep Liberty with two rear wheels shot out. Initial statements from witnesses stated that suspects wearing face coverings, some described as ski masks, from the outside, an item can be seen in the rear passenger door compartment that appears to be the same material as what a face covering or ski mask would be made out of. It was learned that Isabelle Lepez was the driver of the vehicle. Now, at the early stage of the investigation, it was unknown if the occupants of the Liberty was the target. Just like at the early stage of the investigation, they didn't know that the suspects at the hospital were not victims. Are we seeing a pattern here? Lepez gave an initial statement that she did not know the occupants of her vehicle. Okay. She spoke to officers on the scene and later with Detective Lee. Her initial statement was that the vehicle was occupied by 3 females in the back and 1 male in the front passenger. Her initial statement was that the male she only knew as B and had known him for a few months. She did not know him or how to get a hold of him, but happened to be wherever he was at the time. She stated that the only female she knew in her vehicle was Emily. Okay. So Emily's in the back with 2 girls she doesn't know and a guy in the front seat that you barely know. Okay. I was informed at the scene that Emily attempted life-saving measures on Denali, and she was taken to the station and was later interviewed by Detective Lee. So some of the items that were collected, these are all the bullet fragments, casings that come with the report, 9 millimeters, 40 cals. So these 9 millimeter and 40 cal shell casings were past the victim's body, my son Denali, and near the rear of the white Jeep that was facing west on Pimlico. So the shell casings were past the body and near the rear of the white Jeep. Okay, so they were shooting from the Jeep, had ski masks, jumped in the car. Okay, it's kind of adding up a little bit. I may be wrong, but I'm not sure. So officer stated that when he arrived, I was directed to a white Jeep a short distance west of our location in front of 6108 Pimlico. I was informed the vehicle was involved in the incident and to secure it for evidence. So this officer was already told when he arrived that that white Jeep was involved in the incident. Okay. I approached the white Jeep Liberty license plate with a short female standing outside of the vehicle by an open driver's door. I advised the female, identified as Isabelle Lepez, to step away from the vehicle. What about put your hands up, get on the ground? Oh, no, none of that? Oh, okay. Isabelle appeared to be in shock and had a 1,000-yard stare. She was caught. Isabelle was on the phone with her mom. Isabelle told me that this was her car and that she was coming to a friend's party. Now remember that. Remember that part right there. Isabelle told the officer that that was her car and that she was coming to a friend's party. It's clear as day. That's what she told him. I don't think the officer will lie about that. She was coming to a friend's party. So Isabelle appeared to be in a daze. Okay. Isabelle said that they were sitting in the car when they heard gunshots. Then she tried to drive, but her tires were flat. I asked who she was with. Isabelle said that girl right there, pointing to a short white female covered in blood, later identified as Amelia Fish. Isabelle said there was another black male with her who goes by B, and she did not know what that was short for. Isabelle described him as a black male, about 5'10", dark skin, and wearing all pink. So B wore all pink, dark-skinned male, on the night of August 6, 2022, when my son was murdered. So Isabelle said she did not know where he was. I asked her what brought her here. Isabelle replied she was not sure and that they were at a party that ended and then told to drive here. So wait, I asked her what brought her here. Isabelle replied she was not sure and they were at a birthday party that ended, then told to drive here. But just a second ago, she said that was her car and she was coming to a friend's party. Okay? So then already he's catching her up in a lie, but at this point, I stopped asking questions and Isabelle seemed out of it in daze. I told Isabelle to focus on breathing. Was she shot? Is she a victim? She's out of it. She's in a daze, but she just told you that she was coming to a friend's party. And then she said she didn't know why she wasn't there. Then she said that B had fled, but she doesn't know who his name is. And she doesn't know the two black girls in her back seat. Okay. But let's stop asking questions because she seemed to be out of it and in a daze. She's the victim. That's right. She's the victim. Let's just focus on breathing, Isabelle. Let's focus on breathing. So, I spoke to Isabelle's mother on the phone, who advised she was on her way to the location. Okay, that's fine. Isabelle's 19. If her mother wants to show up, that's fine. I would do the same. But Isabelle's mother demanded to see her daughter and was very uncooperative and hostile towards law enforcement officers. Now, how could she demand to see her daughter? She's not a minor. So once Isabelle's mother arrived on scene, Officer Raines escorted Isabelle to wait with her mother. Now, these officers like to question 15, 16, and 17-year-olds without even a parent present. And we know why. But you're going to escort a 19-year-old female to wait with her mother who's already been suspected of being involved in this situation. Okay, good job, Raines. So I remained with the vehicle for scene security. I observed the vehicle was mostly empty except for the items in the back storage. The rear driver's side tire was flat and both passenger side tires were flat. So now they decide to bring Isabelle in. Let's go ahead and give her an interview. Days later, who knows? I reached out to Isabelle Lepez, 11/12/2002, to request an interview with her. Request an interview with her. Request! Just come on in. We know you were there. You got masks, bullet fragments. You lied. Just, would you like to come in and talk to us? Detectives learned through officer reports that Isabelle was present during the shooting and was parked directly in front of the Nissan Altima on Pimlico Drive. Directly in front of the suspects who drove away, went to the hospital. They got away, but their tires were flat too. But she didn't leave because her tires were flat too. So Isabelle agreed, and an interview was conducted on August 10th, 2022, 4 days later, at about 10:19 hours. Okay, so Neil Darwin, born in 1972, was also present during the interview. Okay. Again, not a minor. She could have declined the interview. Okay. Neil is Isabelle's mom's boyfriend. Prior to the interview, I made sure Isabelle was aware she was not being detained and she was free to terminate the interview at any time. Being that Isabelle was not a suspect, don't know why, I did not advise her of her Miranda rights prior to the interview. I initially asked Isabelle if I could speak with her alone, but Neil and Isabelle insisted on him being present. I asked Isabelle to start from the beginning and explain how the night started. Isabelle said she went to a party at Howard Amon Park in Richland. While at that location, it was decided they would go to another party in downtown Pasco. So at that location, they would decide to go to another party in downtown Pasco. So did you meet B at the Howard Amon? Did you already take him there? Did you pick him up where you're hanging out all night? Upon leaving Howard Amon Park, Isabelle transported two other individuals, Brenton. So now she gets in the detective room and his name is Brenton, unknown lass, who Isabelle refers to as B, and Amelia, unknown lass. B is described as a black male. Isabelle informed me she's only known B for about 2 months and Amelia for about a month. I asked if she knew where B lives, and Isabelle says she thinks he lives in Kennewick, but is unsure what part. Isabelle said the party in downtown Pasco eventually got shut down. She was asked if there were any disagreements between people at either party that may have led up to the shooting. Now, Isabelle said there was a fight between two guys in downtown Pasco that resulted in her getting pushed, but she could not provide details as to who they were or what they looked like. So you're just standing around, you get pushed, you don't look, you fall to the ground, okay, you didn't see him. Sure. After the party downtown ended, which was ultimately shut down for underage drinking, B told Isabelle about another party. Okay, so you just got pushed, you barely know B, and you only know Amelia a little bit, but let's go to another party. B provided Isabelle directions as she drove out to Pimlico Drive. So B knows the owners of the house at Pimlico. There was a mass text message. Everybody was invited. Okay. Isabelle stated going to the party on Pimlico was never part of the plan. But wait, in her statement at the scene, that was her car and she was coming to a friend's party. Remember? But now she stated that going to the party on Pimlico was never part of the plan. Well, then why didn't you go home? You just got pushed. You already went to two parties. Okay. Wasn't part of the plan. So Isabelle said two other girls hitched a ride to the party. She informed me she has no idea who they are and thinks they are possibly friends of B. Does that make any sense, y'all? She has no idea who they are and thinks they might be friends of B. She barely knows B. Lets two other girls get in the car to go to a party. But she was going to her friend's party, so she was bringing her friends along. She knew everybody in there. I asked Isabelle what she was driving, and she informed me she was driving a Jeep Liberty. Isabelle said they arrived in the neighborhood and she parked on the side of the road. She stated she never got out of her vehicle because she was unsure if they were going to end up leaving to go to another location. Again, you're coming to a friend's party. 4 days later, she didn't have time to kind of think up and try to make up a story, then probably talk to B, and they done probably schooled her on what to say. But now she says she never got out of the car because she was unsure if they were going to end up leaving to go to another location. As she sat in her vehicle, waiting to see what the plan was. No, you were waiting for them to shoot and kill my son. Isabelle heard gunshots. Isabelle ducked down in her vehicle to take cover. She noticed two people, a girl she did not recognize. Now, that wasn't one of the two girls that were in the back of the car because she would recognize them. And B, taking cover in front of her vehicle. So B's talking to another girl that she doesn't recognize. And they're in the front of her car. Where are the other two girls? Where's Amelia? Sounds like a group of people swarming in the street. After the gunshots were finished, Isabelle noticed Amelia giving CPR to Denali and yelled at her to get back in the vehicle. Yeah, she yelled at her to get back in the vehicle so they can get out of there and try to get B or whoever had them ski masks in the rear passenger window, door, and in the console. But since the tires were flat, they all hopped out of the car and left Isabelle stuck. So Isabelle noticed Amelia giving CPR to Denali and yelled at her to get back in the vehicle. Isabelle said she did not know Denali and is unsure who exactly he was to Amelia. Isabelle said they never ended up at the house party. Now, after the shooting finished, Isabelle attempted to leave the location but was unable to because her tires were flat. Officers arrived at the location before Isabelle could leave the area. She was really trying to get away. Isabelle could not provide any details as to who the shooters were or how many rounds were fired. I finished my interview with Isabelle shortly after and provided her with my business card. I'm sure that was the last time he ever talked to her. So here we got a statement from a witness that says she drove onto the area west of Pimlico from Saratoga, and there were numerous vehicles driving behind her. The guy already said it was 30 kids and 12 cars. She then saw a crowd swarming in the street. Sounds like a lot of people were getting out of that white Jeep. Other people were there out in the street. And a male fly onto the ground. She heard 10 gunshots. Now she's driving up and says she heard 10 gunshots. But Isabelle, who's sitting right in the white Jeep, doesn't know the shooters, can't see the shooters, doesn't know how many shots were fired, but she sees B and the unknown girl in front of the car and Amelia giving CPR. But then after that, all of the cars reversed and she saw two people go down. And one of our last witnesses, officer says, I spoke to the resident and he said he heard pops and came outside. And he saw a white car reversing really, really fast. So he saw a white car reversing really, really fast. And there was that white Jeep. And here's your culprit. And now you see why the graph and the numbers look the way they do. That's your culprit right there. Now I'm about ready to reach out to Vice President Kamala Harris or something for what's going on in Washington State. Seriously, for her background as Attorney General of California. Since Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson sent me right back into the grinder. But we haven't even gotten to Buried by the State yet, so stay tuned. But this is Murdered by the City, Tortured by the County, Buried by the State. Brought to you by Denali Vision. I'd like to say peace to my son, my brother, my friend. I walk in your strength, legacy, and power today and every day.